Thousands of Oregon children are abused and neglected each year.
They need our help by speaking out on their behalf.
75% of child abuse reports are made by mandatory reporters.
If we neglect our duty, we will give child abusers two powerful weapons: secrecy and silence.
The beatings, the deaths will continue.
This video is designed to train each of us what to look for.
And more importantly, what to do.
As mandatory reporters, you're a deterrent in the fight against child abuse.
Without your initial report, the professionals cannot respond.
The call you make may save a child's life.
Hello, I'm Paul Lindman. On behalf of Oregon's children, welcome to this important presentation. It's intended to help you learn the process for reporting child abuse here in Oregon and to help you feel comfortable working within the child abuse system. You're going to learn who's required to report, under what circumstances, and how these reports are made. You know, all over Oregon, there are teams designated to respond together to assess and investigate alleged child abuse cases. These are called multidisciplinary child abuse teams, and they're made up of professionals from different disciplines working in the legal and social service systems. Now, each of these teams may have its own procedure or protocol for reporting alleged child abuse in its specific county, but the guidelines for initial reporting you'll receive here are consistent throughout the entire state. You may wish to refer to the reference guide, What You Can Do About Child Abuse, during this presentation.
Who are mandatory reporters?
In Oregon, you're required to report child abuse if you're a mandatory reporter and if you have reasonable cause to believe a child you have come in contact with has been abused, or a person you've come in contact with has abused a child. While persons other than mandated reporters are not required to report child abuse in Oregon, they are urged to do so to help protect children, to help the child's family obtain social services, and to stop or prevent future abusive or neglectful behavior. Oregon law lists certain public and private officials who, because of their profession, most frequently come into contact with abused children or with those who abuse them.
Am I a mandatory reporter?
Mandatory reporters represent a wide range of professionals. The law identifies the following public or private officials as persons mandated to report child abuse: medical personnel, specifically physicians, including interns and residents; naturopathic physicians; dentists; registered or licensed nurses; chiropractors; and optometrists; all public and private school employees, such as principals, teachers, and school nurses; custodians, food service staff, and coaches also may be mandatory reporters if they are employed by a school. Peace officers. While law enforcement personnel investigate cases of alleged child abuse, they are also mandated to report child abuse. Persons in the legal profession, such as judges, attorneys, and court-appointed special advocates. Employees of the Department of Human Services, the State Commission on Children and Families, the Child Care Division of the Employment Department, the Oregon Youth Authority, a county health department, a community mental health and developmental disabilities program, a county juvenile department, a licensed child caring agency, or an alcohol and drug treatment program. Certified foster care providers or their employees. Registered or certified child care providers are also mandatory reporters of child abuse. Psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed professional counselors, licensed marriage counselors, licensed family therapists, and licensed clinical social workers. Clergy of all religions, and lastly, firefighters and emergency medical technicians.
What if I'm off duty?
You're required to report child abuse 24 hours a day, regardless of whether your knowledge of the abuse came within your official capacity or during off-duty hours. For example, if you stop for groceries on your way home from work and observe child abuse while standing in the checkout line, you are still required by law to report that information. Mandatory reporters are required to make an immediate report. Immediate means without delay. Such reports cannot wait until later, a more convenient time, or the next business day. Even if the child is not currently in danger, the reporter is required to to report immediately.
How do I make an immediate report?
Reports must be made to either a law enforcement agency or to Child Protective Services.
Hey, Justin, can you come with me to my office for a minute?
Yeah.
CPS is the branch that deals specifically with child protection issues under the jurisdiction of the Department of Human Services. Law enforcement agencies include police departments, county sheriff's offices, and the Oregon State Police. You are not required to call both. Oregon has a reciprocal reporting system, meaning that the report information is always shared between law enforcement and CPS.
When kids fall off their bikes, most of the time they get hurt on their hands and their knees. Does that happen? If you got hurt on your face, how did you get these bruises back here on your back?
I didn't really fall off my new bike.
What happened?
When I make Sam mad, he hurts my face and squeezes my neck real hard.
Who's Sam?
He's a big man who lives with me and my mom. He makes me scared.
Thank you for telling me that, Justin.
Child Abuse Hotline, this is Tammy.
The initial report may be made over the phone. Most of Oregon's DHS Child Protective Services offices are open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and can be located in the local phone book. During the evening and on weekends, some counties have a hotline or someone on call to take emergency reports. In most areas, law enforcement is a 24-hour service.
At first he said he fell off his bike, but I checked him and he has no bruises on his hands, legs, or knees. So we talked more and he told me he's being hit by an adult named Sam who apparently lives in his home.
CPS workers are trained to ask specific questions about the nature of abuse. This will help them in assessing the nature of the abuse, the possible danger to the child or the child's siblings, and in choosing the appropriate response. CPS workers will check the state's computerized records to learn if there is a caseworker already assigned to the family and if there have been past complaints of abuse or neglect.
What information should I have?
You should provide as much information as you can. If possible, you need to give the child's full name, date of birth or approximate age, address, the names of parents and siblings, the nature and extent of the abuse, and the location of the child. It's helpful to include any history of previous episodes of abuse you suspected or are aware of from records, or statements by a victim, perpetrator, or witness. Keep a record of the date and time you called and the name of the person to whom you spoke.
We consider this an immediate response, so law enforcement and CPS worker will be on their way out. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
911?
Hi, this is Tammy at the Child Abuse Hotline. Yes, I'm calling for police assistance. We have a 6-year-old boy who's at daycare, and he has injuries.
What address is the child at? And is the child safe where he is right now?
It's important that the reporter not tell the one suspected of abuse that you have made a report, that CPS or law enforcement has been notified, or that anyone is responding. This will help protect both the reporter and the child.
Hi, I'm the one that called.
Hi, Officer Lori Smith, and this is Kurt Bolos of Department of Human Services.
The reason I called is there's a little boy here who's got some bruising on his face and his neck. And when I asked him
In many jurisdictions, CPS and police respond together to assess suspected abuse cases.
We've come to talk to you about the owie you have on your eye. Can you tell us how that happened?
The investigation includes identifying the problems that lead to the abuse or neglect. The worker will evaluate the parents' or caretaker's responses and willingness to cooperate. Sometimes children must be removed for their protection, but in most instances, children are not removed from their homes.
Hello, my name is Kurt Bolos. I'm from Child Protective Services. I'm here to talk to you about your son being taken into protective custody.
Okay, come on in.
The police have arrested Sam, your boyfriend, for assaulting Justin. We need to discuss a safety plan for you and your son.
He's been hitting me, but I never thought he'd hit Justin. When I asked about the black eye, Justin said he fell off his bike. I need your help. I want to protect my son from this ever happening again.
Justin's doing a lot better than I expected. We're going to some domestic violence classes to try to understand why it happened.
Based upon the likelihood of future abuse or neglect and the family's strengths to protect the children, CPS will determine the appropriate action. The family may be referred to community resources such as mental health or family counseling. All reasonable efforts will be made to assure children are protected from further abuse.
What information can I get from CPS after I make a report?
We interviewed a child at your program, and I wanted to get back with you as a mandatory reporter.
You can be told if they have enough information to do a protective services assessment of the child. At the conclusion of the assessment, you may be informed if the concerns were substantiated.
What kinds of abuse am I required to report?
The most recognizable type of abuse is physical. You can visually observe bruises, burns, cuts, and scars. Neglect may also be visible. It includes conditions that jeopardize the child's health, like rotten teeth, malnutrition, or a child who is underweight for their average age and height. Unexplained or lengthy absence from school is another indicator that abuse may be taking place. Also, it's against the law to leave young children under 10 years of age alone if their surroundings or circumstances place them in jeopardy. Other abuse is not as easily recognized. Mental or sexual abuse may not show any physical signs. However, after developing a trusting relationship, children may eventually disclose such abuse. Of course, a report of the disclosure must be made. Oregon law defines abuse that must be reported, including but not limited to physical injury that's non-accidental, including injuries where the explanation given for the injury is inconsistent with the injury. Mental injury, which is cruelty to the child that causes observable and substantial impairment of a child's mental or psychological ability to function with due regard to the child's culture. Sexual abuse, which includes fondling, voyeurism, incest, rape, sodomy, sexual penetration, child pornography, and child prostitution. Neglect or maltreatment, including the failure to provide adequate food, clothing, and shelter, or medical care that's likely to endanger the health or welfare of the child. Threatened harm, which means subjecting a child to a substantial risk of harm to the child's health and welfare. Under the law, reasonable discipline isn't considered abuse unless the discipline results in one of the conditions previously described as abuse. Buying or selling children is against the law and is considered abuse.
If I see a suspicious mark on a child, should I investigate it?
Okay, all right, thank you for all coming, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Sarah, would you mind staying after class for a moment? I need to talk to you.
Your occupation dictates if and how you go about questioning a child. For example, it wouldn't be unusual for a school teacher noticing fresh bruises on a student to comment about the bruises and their cause.
Thanks for staying after class today, Sarah. No, I noticed you weren't participating much. Is there something wrong? Really, are you sure? You know, I noticed that there might be something on the side of your face. Would you mind if I take a look at that? Don't worry, it's okay. Oh, may I ask what happened?
I was playing volleyball today and somebody hit me.
And it happened today. Are you sure?
It's standard practice for doctors or nurses to interview patients to discover the cause of an injury for treatment purposes. If the child's explanation does not seem logical or is not consistent with the injury you observe, or if the child's body language indicates they may be minimizing or shading facts, you might talk further with them. Use caution as to the type and the extent of questioning. With children, particularly very young children, it's very important not to use leading questions like, "I know he hit you, didn't he?" Questions assuming an answer open you to criticism for planting an idea the cause of the injury was abuse. Encourage the child to talk using their own words with open-ended questions like, "Can you tell me about it?" It's not appropriate for you to conduct an investigation beyond what your profession may require. A system of child abuse evaluation centers exists throughout Oregon, where specially trained professionals do child interviews in a sensitive, systematic manner, in a child-friendly environment. This does not mean you can't talk openly and honestly with the child, and if the explanation doesn't fit, report it.
Do I need to contact the child's parent or guardian?
No, it's not your job to contact the child's parent or guardian. Let the police or Child Protective Services make the appropriate notifications. Premature notification may endanger the child or compromise the investigation. If the caregiver is present and offers explanations for the injury, you should pay close attention to what they say and include that information in your report to authorities.
Do I have to prove abuse occurred before I report it?
I'm calling as I suspect a possible case of child abuse.
You don't have to prove abuse occurred before you report it. The law is clear. However, you must have reasonable cause to believe a child you have had contact with has been abused, or a person you've come into contact with has abused a child. Upon receipt of a child abuse report, the law requires law enforcement and DHS Child Protective Services to conduct an investigation and assessment to determine whether abuse occurred.
What if I'm not sure it's abuse?
You don't have to be sure abuse has occurred. Even if a subsequent assessment shows the situation wasn't abuse, it was still appropriate for you to report if you had reasonable cause to believe a child was abused or a person had abused a child. Occasionally, more than one person calls with a concern about the same child. Your additional report may supply DHS Child Protective Services with a critical piece of information, enabling them to respond and help the child or the child's family. If you have ongoing contact with the child and you suspect abuse, it's always helpful for you to document your suspicions for future reference. You should note the date and time, your observations, what the child said, and the activity or circumstances at the time of their disclosures. If more is revealed in the future, your past notes will strengthen your reasons for making the report.
Tamara? Follow me. Okay, Tamara, Dr. Stevens will be with you in just a moment. Here's a gown. Go ahead and get undressed and put that on.
Hi, Tamara. How are you? It's been some time since I've had you visit. How you doing? Well, let's see. You're up on all your shots, so you don't have to worry about that today. This is just a school sports exam, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I noticed, Tamara, that you didn't take your clothes off. Is there a reason you don't want an exam today? Is there anything you want to tell me? You look like you're kind of upset about something.
Yeah, but I don't want to tell because I'll get in trouble.
You won't get in trouble with me. It is okay to tell. Tamara, I'm your doctor, and I need to make sure your body's healthy. Is there anything you want to tell me? What is it?
My mom's brother, Uncle Harry's been living with us. He's been doing stuff to me in my bedroom. He told me I'd be in trouble if I told. What should I say to a child who tells me she's being abused?
If a child discloses abuse to you, do not react emotionally. Don't look shocked or blame anyone. Let the child know they are not to blame. Tell them you'll get in touch with people who can help them. To alleviate the child's apprehensions, explain they may have to tell these people what they told you. Tell the child you'll be there to support them. When a child discloses abuse to you, take their statement seriously. Don't pressure them to reveal any more than they're willing to tell you. Again, you don't have to prove the abuse occurred. If a child tells you they're a victim, this constitutes reasonable cause to make a report. One more thing, be sure not to make promises about what will or will not happen.
How will children react after a disclosure is made?
Many children are relieved that the secret is out and that it's been shared with someone they trust. Some may fear the reaction of their parent or caregiver, particularly if those are the ones responsible for the abuse. Teens are particularly sensitive about confidentiality, about their peers or parents finding out or that they told someone. But explain, you are required by law to report this.
After I report, will my name be made public?
In Oregon, and in most other states, there are laws which keep child abuse reports confidential.
Such reports are not available to the public or the media. The report information is shared among the members of the multidisciplinary team, but strict confidentiality rules apply. Generally, the names, addresses, and other identifying information about a person who makes a child abuse report are confidential. A small number of cases can result in juvenile or criminal court action, and you may then be called as a witness.
Can I be sued by the parent for making a report?
Under Oregon law, any person who makes a child abuse report in good faith, which is based upon reasonable grounds, is immune from liability.
What if the abuse happened long ago?
Even if the abuse happened long ago, you should still report it because the abuser may still have access to children in another family, a step-family, or perhaps grandchildren. People who abuse children usually continue to be at risk, even into old age. Also, reporting the earlier history may give enough information for action on a current case. There's no statute of limitations on reporting child abuse.
Should I make a report to my supervisor?
Many employers and organizations have internal policies directing you to notify a supervisor or other representative before reporting child abuse. However, this does not relieve you of your obligation to make a report to Child Protective Services or law enforcement.
I noticed some suspicious marks on her face after class today.
It is very important for CPS to talk to the person closest to the source of information. If you learned of the child's abuse, you must call CPS or the police. Also, if you make the report, you are assured the report has indeed been made.
Shed some more light on the situation.
Have you had concerns about her before?
A 5-year-old boy playing with matches caused this fire. He and his younger sister were left alone in the apartment. They were lucky we got here in time. By putting out the fire and saving the children, part of our job is done. But we have one more important task, to report this to Children's Protective Services and law enforcement as a child neglect case. Firefighters and paramedics are not only mandatory reporters of abuse, but part of a team of professionals whose job is to ensure children are safe from abuse. As a mandated reporter of child abuse, we welcome you to join the team of professionals in our efforts to protect Oregon's children. You can make an important decision that will save a child and positively affect the quality of their lives.
For that, we thank you.
For copies of the